For the last 11 months, we have investigated 82 professional tax preparation and research tools, resulting in the review of hundreds of features, pricing tiers, databases, and customer support models. Whenever we needed clarifications or answers to specific thematics, we reached out to representatives of the respective tax software providers. This video is part of a series that is a direct offshoot of our months-long initiative. We have rated these software tools on 6 quintessential criteria. So you have accuracy, that is low error rate, timely updates, value for cost, ease of use, customer support, and availability of forms. Enjoy. Let's get right into it. How do you choose a professional tax preparer software tool? Right off the bat, let me just say that do not base your choice only on cost for value. In other words, don't choose a tax preparer software tool based on affordability or what you think is affordability. This is a fundamental mistake for several reasons. Number one, developing and updating professional tax software is expensive because tax laws are inherently complex and they change all the time. Number two, the pro tax software market is an oligopoly. You have about 7, 6, 8 behemoths dominating the market, followed by a few smaller players. So when you have an oligopoly, prices tend to be distorted in an upward trajectory, right? Number three, customer support is very important, especially with respect to technical guidance and software setup and walkthrough. So low-priced software providers do not always provide stellar client support. Number four, opportunities for networking, CPE, and peer-to-peer feedback are also important for a tax preparer. I mean, whether you have a small practice or a big practice, this is important. And what we have seen in our research is that low-priced software providers do not offer that operational context your practice needs to grow. Number five, form accuracy and regulatory acumen are paramount in our business. If you choose a software tool that is too bargain, you may not have a comprehensive research and filing system, and you might end up paying thousands of dollars in tax penalties at the federal and state levels, as well as higher professional liability insurance premiums. Don't forget that. Don't even get me started on the client exodus that your practice could also experience, along with the revenue loss and reputational damage if you or your practice is a tax preparer and they have some kind of a problem in terms of a lawsuit, right? So the bottom line here is that professional tax software is not cheap and price will keep going up in the future. You cannot change that. But here is what you can do. You want to focus on what you can control. For example, gaining clients, expanding your practice, growing revenue, diversifying your business model so you can afford the prices that the software providers are charging. Now, having said that, once you become a client, there are always ways to negotiate a better price with your provider, right? You can also haggle over price during the onboarding process, especially if you can convince a sales rep to give you the tool, to give you the deal of the year or the century, whatever. I'll talk about that later on. So before I open the discussion per se, do me a favor. I want you to take a few seconds to see the picture on the screen right now. Look at this. Let this information sink in. I want you to let it sink in. Okay, here is today's agenda. So I will be talking to you about, I'll give you an overview. I'll show you how you can pay attention to ergonomics. The convenience is important, productivity, support, growth, pricing, and I'll give you the synopsis. I want you to look right now so you can see that we do have a practice evaluation grid. You want to pay attention to, before choosing a professional tax preparer software, you need to make sure that you have thought about your practice in terms of size. Are you a single member practice? Are you an oligo member practice? Are you a multi-member practice? Are you a small practice? Are you a mid-sized practice? What about brand recognition? Are you known? Is your brand episodic? Is your branding evolving? Is your branding established? You got to think about those things. What about your niche versus state and federal regulations? Are you focusing on business or personal tax returns or both? Pay attention to that. Does your practice have IRS representation rights? In other words, are you a CPA? Are you an EA? Are you a JD? How do you position yourself? You got to think about those things before you even think about buying professional tax preparer software, because there are consequences. You got to think about your goals, your practice's goals. Are you focusing on revenue growth? Revenue growth, I'm talking about client onboarding, branding, marketing. Can the software help you in terms of CPE, in terms of learning, lifelong learning? Pay attention to those things, right? What about research and information needs? For us, this is really critical because when we analyze tax preparer software, we always do so in conjunction with three key processes that, in our view, any practice needs to pay attention to if it wants to survive and thrive. For example, seasonality. We call this the 3 S's. Seasonality. When we think about seasonality, we think about two things. The pure seasonality that you know from January through April. And then we have cyclicality. For example, estate planning, somebody dies, somebody's born, you have a new baby. So there are some tax consequences to people's estates. And this is where you're being called and your expertise is needed. But that's not the right way to grow a practice. And so besides seasonality, you have stability. Stability is important because it shows how well diversified your business model is. But stability is good, but it's not the best. You want to be sustainable. And that's the third S, sustainability. Sustainability means that you have an operational framework that brings revenue day in and day out. You don't care about seasonality anymore. You don't care about January or February. You don't care about that because all year long, you're making money. So the best pro tax software tools provide the research and intelligence ecosystem you need for regulatory compliance and business growth. Okay, you're not just looking for a software tool just to file a 1040 this season or 1040s this season. You're looking for something more, okay? And research and intelligence gathering is important. By intelligence, I mean you want to know what's going on in the industry. You want to know what's going on in terms of regulations, in terms of the latest law, the latest court cases. Those are important. If you, let me just show you quickly the kind of resources you have for tax information on the internet. First, you have the fee-based online tax research services. So you have the Thomson Reuters Checkpoint. You have the Wolters Kluwer CCH IntelliConnect. You have the Bloomberg Tax and Accounting. You have the Parker Tax Publishing. You have the Taxbook. And we talk about electronic libraries that are available online. You have the Thomson Reuters Practitioners Publishing Company, the PPC. The National Underwriter. We also have online professional discussion groups. We have the Tax Pro Talk, Accountant Forums, Accounting Web, and Intuit Accountant. And you also have information from the Internal Revenue Code. For instance, we have a wonderful page from Cornell University, so the Legal Information Institute of Cornell University, and of course the IRS itself. There are also other resources you need to pay attention to as you're trying to either grow or stabilize your firm, because you never stop learning anyway, right? That's the job we have to do. We have to constantly learn. You have the CPE requirements. You also have other requirements depending on the states where you operate or depending on the niche you're in. So we have the U.S. Tax Court. We have the Enrolled Agent Journal. We have the Tax Advisor, the Financial Manager magazine, the Journal of Accountancy, the PCAOB, the Return Preparer Program, State Regulation of Tax Preparers, the Automated Lane System Database Listing, Actions on Decisions. What I'm trying to tell you here is that if you don't have the right software and you focus only on cost for value, You might have to do this research manually yourself. In other words, all these research tools, if you get a good software tool, you have all this research information directly embedded, most of them at least, directly embedded into the software itself. I'll give you an example. If you go with Wolters Kluwer or Intuit or Thomson Reuters or Drake, you do have a comprehensive set of research tools. So the first thing you need to pay attention to, if you're trying to buy a professional text preparer tool, you want to pay attention to ergonomics. Here we focus on user friendliness. Please don't waste your time on trying to have something complicated. You don't need to call the customer service all the time to explain to you how to file your client's return, because you don't have time. Especially if you're trying to grow your practice, you don't have time to be on the phone for 2 hours for someone in the technical department to walk you through the software. You want something that is intuitive. Very important. You want to have a tool that has the most essential features. Very important. You want the tool to be in terms of the ease of use. It must be very intuitive, but it must have also some specifics. For example, you want to have data entry style. It can be form or interview. You want to have all states included. You want to have all federal tax forms included. Unlimited 1040 e-file if you want it that way. And if you are in the business returns niche, you want to have corporate returns. Okay. One thing I have seen personally, and this is a personal story here, a lot has changed in user friendliness in the last few years, but there needs to be more improvement. I can tell you that as a CPA working at Arthur Andersen back in the days, way before the Enron scandal, my team and I had to contact an in-house technical group just to walk us through some software tools. Yep, you heard it right. They were that complicated. The tools were that complicated back in the days. But a few years later, when I opened a small practice with a few CPAs, EAs, and tax lawyers serving family offices on Wall Street and Hoboken, New Jersey, I saw how convoluted user friendliness still was on some tools. But the good news is that nowadays, things have definitely improved. And you want to pay attention to ergonomics because, unfortunately, I want to share with you, there is a case in point. There was a court case not long ago in 2020 that involved some kind of ease of use. So basically, that was the Frost case. And the issue was which party, the IRS or the taxpayer, bears the initial burden of production regarding compliance with IRC 6751B. Now, the case was a major case, but some legal experts have mentioned the fact that the software that some of the parties were using was not user-friendly. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that this criterion is important because it has consequences. If you don't have a software tool that is user-friendly and you have to spend time trying to understand, the possibility of errors is high, especially if you're not a single member practice. If you have rookies in your team and the rookies have to do part of the work, this could be problematic. Second, you want to pay attention to convenience. So when we talk about convenience, if you want to choose a professional tax preparer tool, you want to pay attention to user experience. And this is different from user friendliness or ease of use. User experience means that how satisfactory is the experience of using the software as a whole. Okay, does it make electronic tax preparation a lot faster and simpler? Does it assist you in determining the correct tax forms and how do you do them correctly? You also want to think about platform availability, because when we talk about convenience, remember nowadays you have to think about, do you want a desktop setup, a web-based setup, or both? It's totally up to your practice. It depends on how you have set up your practice. Or do you travel? Do you go from client to client? Or do you want to work while you are on vacation? It really depends on your situation. One thing I want to say here, and based on our research, we have seen that basically you want to pay attention to the forms that you need to support your clients. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the clientele you currently have. Now, don't get me wrong. This is constantly changing, right? You can start with a certain niche today, and tomorrow your practice can say, you know what? I want to go after this particular niche. So you will have new clients, and you want to make sure that the software that you have has the forms that fit your client situation. Does the software offer diagnostics to help you feel confident in the accuracy of the tax return? It's important. Does the software provider offer a free trial so you can evaluate the ease of use of the software? We love that part because free trial means that the software provider is confident in the ability of their tool to do the job. Because think about it. If I believe that I have a superb tool, I wouldn't mind just allowing you to use it for 7 days or 3 days, whatever, because I'm so confident that once you use it, you're going to love it. So you want to go for clients that allow you to test a demo, to have a free trial. In other words, you want to actually test something before you buy it. And the issue of convenience is really important because there was a case in point. There was a court case not long ago, the late laws case, and this happened also in about a year ago. Yep. And the issue was whether the IRS Independent Office of Appeals abused its discretion in sustaining a proposed levy, although it failed to determine that the IRS has complied with IRC 6751B with respect to the assessment of an assessable penalty under IRC 6707A. Now, this is a long summary of the case, but some legal experts and tax accountants and CPAs have said that the issue was also about convenience. The practice that was being sued in this case didn't have the right, or at least didn't have part of the software they were using was not convenient. It was not user friendly in terms of user experience. So the errors started from there. So I'm just showing you. I'm not trying to scare you here. I'm just saying, hey, listen, these criteria are important. They do have real life consequences, not just in terms of onboarding clients, but also in terms of your reputation, in terms of your legal, I would say, the preservation of your legal rights. Let's talk about productivity, folks. We are still having a conversation about how to choose a professional tax preparer software. And you want to pay attention to criteria number 3, productivity. Here we focus on workflow gains. What I'm trying to say here is that if you are going to get a software tool for your practice, and again, I don't care about how small or big your practice is, at the end of the day, you want things to be productive. You want to have a few things. For example, you want the tool to allow you to save time and cost. Very important. Does the professional tax software contribute to a more efficient workflow? Are you able to complete tax returns faster without sacrificing accuracy? Because it's always the balance we practitioners have to strike, right? So you want to have quality that makes sense, but you also want to have accuracy. And can you file multiple returns or access various tax forms without paying additional fees? In other words, does the software provider, are they trying to double dip you, or are they transparent in terms of pricing? So pay attention to that. You also want to pay attention to return validation. So can running this tax software help you mitigate errors? Does it offer diagnostic tools which can tell you if your filled out form is correct and complete? This is just the basic. You need to have that, especially if you are going to process high volume 1040s or 1120s or 1065s, or if you want to go to the more niche, the more specific niches where tax forms are more complex. For example, oil and gas depletion. You really want to make sure that you cannot afford to have mistakes on your forms when you file forms for clients. So pay attention to that. And there's a third element in productivity, that's info security. So can the software handle secure data transmission? Does it provide safe and secure file storage? This is important, right? Does it support cybersecurity features like two-factor authentication? Because everything is fine now, but if hackers are able to attack banks, you bet they can attack any software provider. So you really want to have some kind of a security level, security stability on the platform that you are choosing. Case in point, we had the Chadwick case, and the issue was whether a trust fund recovery penalty under IRC 6672 is a tax or a penalty for purposes of IRC 6751B. Now, this is the summary of the case, but as we were researching this criteria, and after speaking to tens of legal experts and tax accountants and CPAs and EAs, one of the issue was the software they were using was not helping them gain in terms of workflows. They're not helping them save time and save cost. There was a problem on the return validation. There was a problem in terms of the security. So here we are. We have a case that went to court. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another session of the Awesome Security Kiwi Show. I'm still having a conversation with you today about how to choose a professional tax preparer software tool. And I've spoken to you first about paying attention to ergonomics, then convenience, productivity. Now I want to talk to you about support. Customer support is really important. We focus here on client assistance. And so when we talk about customer support, we talk about two things. We talked about the traditional customer support that you and I know. So for instance, does the software provider offer tax pro advice and user assistance to their customers? Because when we see, if you have a complicated tool, if you call, you don't want to be on the phone all day. That's just a waste of time and money. How can the software provider access their support service? Can customers look up specific issues on an online support database or forum? And you want that because you don't want to constantly call the technical assistant department of the provider. No, if they have a database or let's say a website where you can just go and type in what you're looking for, that should be the easiest way. We also want to pay attention to regulatory scalability. For us, this is quintessential. Regulatory scalability. In other words, how quick is the developer in adapting to the regulatory environment? Does the adaptation happen at the federal and or state level? Because some providers might actually update their system at the federal level, but they might be slow at the state level, especially if you are practicing in a small state, quote unquote small state, and they don't see the urgency of doing the updates. This could be a problem. Does the company offer legal or regulatory guidance, free or paid? How strong is the developer's user base? In terms of, when I say strong, I'm talking about acumen. I'm talking about, do they have a lot of CPAs? Do they have a lot of EAs? Do they have a lot of JDs? You want to have some kind of luggage, intellectual luggage at that level. Are there user-generated pieces of regulatory guidance? In other words, I'm speaking about the peer-to-peer forums, for example. This could be also a great opportunity to learn from your peers, right? So I want to share with you, and I promise this is the last one, another case. This is the Oak Brook Land Holdings versus the IRS Commissioner. And here, the issue was whether the Judicial Extinguishment Regulation complied with the Administrative Procedure Act, and also whether such regulation is valid under Chevron. Now, this is the headline summary, but when people who are familiar with the case have told us that an issue was also customer support. In other words, the software that there was some problems in terms of the software provider that they were using and the support that was not timely. So this caused partially, at least partially, some of the problems. Now let's talk about growth. If your job is to choose a professional tax preparation software, and you want to do it right, you want to pay attention to growth. And here we focus on add-on services. What I'm trying to say here is that you want to get a provider that helps you grow. Remember earlier I was talking to you about what? Sustainability, the 3 S's. We focus on seasonality, stability, and sustainability. You want your practice to be here 20 years from now, 30 years from now. That's how you build a practice. You build a brand. So you want to think about add-on services. Can you use the software to collect IRS refunds via bank products to earn extra revenue? And that extra revenue is important, folks. Do not minimize it. We've heard some practitioners telling us, no, we don't do that. We focus on the real stuff. We focus on deferred tax assets, deferred tax liabilities, complicated stuff. That makes us smart. Listen, folks, I don't care about being smart. We all have passed the exams that are needed to enter the profession. Once you are in the profession, you better survive. Okay? So you want to offer as many products as possible to your clients to diversify your revenue base. That's what you want to think about. So you want to think about what bank products are supported through the software provider, what other services are supported. Okay, I'm showing you right now on the screen, courtesy of Tax Slayer, why offer bank products, right? You have the benefits to the clients and the benefits to the tax preparer. So this is actually a win-win situation. Okay, so it's important. Bank product is important. Please do not underestimate it. You also want to analyze your current revenue trends to see what's going on in your practice. You also want to market yourself. Honestly, don't feel like you're just a tax preparer, so you're a practitioner, and your job is to constantly be in the office. No, you got to get out there and market yourself. Especially in this environment, in this competitive environment, you better really have a strategy in place to market yourself. So when I talk about marketing yourself, I'm speaking about a few things. First, you need to build a website. I don't care how small. If you are a single member LLC or you are an oligo member, not LLC, practice. If you're a single member practice or an oligo member practice, you still need a website. And don't give me those one-page website. No, I'm talking about having a legit website. You want to connect on social media. You want to network. You can network in person or online. Very important. You want to use content marketing. You need to establish yourself, actually. You need to use direct marketing because you've got your client email. You've got emails from your clients, so use that, but you got to use it strategically, though. Don't bombard people with irrelevant emails. You don't want that. But ask existing clients for referrals. Think about partnerships with other practitioners. Okay, so this is very important. Let me talk to you now about a very important element also, that's pricing. So when you are thinking about choosing a professional tax preparer software, as I've said before, money is not everything, but money is important. And here we focus on price tiers. One thing we have seen in our analysis is that affordability is important, but it's not the only thing. One thing you want to do first is you want to pay attention to what your goal is in terms of your practice. Do you want to be a seasonal tax practitioner? In other words, you just want to be active from January through April or maybe in May. That's important because the kind of software you want to get will be different from if you wanted to be a year-long tax practitioner. Okay, for instance, you might want to go for a PPR model where you are basically, it's a paper return, and that's more manageable for you, so that if you have, let's say if you have a very busy season, that's kind of cool. If you had a less busy season, you can still manage things. So that's one option. You also have to think about your strategy in terms of diversification. But this has to start with your expertise also. Okay, for instance, let's say, do you want to go after family offices? Do you want to go into a different? Do you want to target farmers? Do you want to target? I don't know. It really the call is yours, but the whole idea is to diversify. And if you're thinking about diversification, you need to have a software tool that adapts to your diversification process. You got to think about how many members you have in your practice. Because honestly, is it better to have one license for everybody or one license per person? Can you afford it? Can your practice afford those licensing fees? It's all about risk versus rewards, but also cost versus benefits analysis. Okay. You also want to understand the fact that if you have an established brand such as Wolters Kluwer or Intuit or Thomson Reuters or Drake, they're going to charge more. I don't care how well they package the whole marketing by telling you, oh, our prices are cost effective, whatever. No, they are still expensive for the reasons I explained to you earlier. When you have an oligopoly, you're going to have prices being distorted upwards. You can't do anything about that. You just need to know it, and you need to know how to work your way around it. Now, let me close today's conversation by telling you one thing you need to understand is that I spoke to you how to choose a professional tax preparer software and pay attention to ergonomics, convenience, productivity, support, customer support, growth, and pricing. But you also want to pay attention to the evaluation grade that I showed you earlier, and I'm showing it to you right now again. You want to pay attention to where you are right now in terms of size and what your needs might be. Remember, if you're a single member or an oligo member, you don't have brand recognition. Okay, so this is something you need to work on because that's going to impact your revenue growth over the long run. All right, folks, thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time, but until then, remember, stay marvelous.